People have NDEs. There's about maybe a few thousand NDEs a day that happen just in the US. So, so it's not that that's, unusual. I think how I was groomed, which is more important. So before my first NDE, I was a young kid, in my late teens, early 20s, and I just wanted to know what life was really about. I went into, understanding or reading about the religions, philosophy, spiritual nature, all that. But there was a lot of questions left unanswered with that. In fact, more questions arose the more I got into it. It just didn't make sense. It didn't compute for me. So, and this is where, as a young kid, you start to go, well, people will become successful because that's what the vision is. I become successful and then I know what life is about. But in today's reality, you see that that's not true either. So that's what I was forced with. And, I just wanted to know the truth, maybe so badly that the universe answered my prayers and go, hey, do you really want to know the truth? And I go, yes, I do. And that led me to my first near-death experience, which was it was a warehouse job. It was a college, it was a college job, and I got my jaws crushed inside a rail car where they have these moving walls, and I climbed up to the wall was stuck, so I climbed up to unhinge it, and as it came free, this half-ton wall just slid across its rails, and it crushed my jaw. But that instance really allowed me to see the beauty, the potential of who we really are. And as I floated completely out, there's different levels of near deaths as well. Mine was a complete disconnect. So my body was there. I was, maybe 10 feet away, and I was observing my body. So complete consciousness, complete awakened, kind of like a dream state where everything is real, but you're not physically there. So it was much like that. And I saw my body, and then I saw the potential of who we were, which, and once you see your potential, you literally get pulled towards that potential. It's just so beautiful. And this is where, people go through the tunnels of light. I necessarily, didn't see my loved ones or anything. Those are the lower levels. But about the fourth level or so, this is where a life review came about. This is where, again, people go, it's a life review, and, angel or Jesus or whatever your religious, belief is, will come and sit in front of you and you go to heaven or to hell. It's really not like that. It's just basically what I went through is literally I relived every moment of life as an awakened spirit, not the distorted version through lineage and my life experience or anything like that. You just see it from a graduate level. Go, oh, that's what that situation meant. That's why this happened to me. So you start to see the patterns on why things happen to you the way they did. And say, for example, that in life, you're like a kindergarten level. You don't understand how time and space and how life works, really. So when you cross over and you review your life, like many people have, it's where you are a graduate level, and you're seeing, oh, now I understand why things happen the way they did. It's more of that, and this gets rid of, the sorrow, the regret, the shame, all those things that we think about, as we get closer to death. Is like, gosh, am I good enough to go to heaven? Am I going to go to hell? Is somebody going to punish me and all that? It's not true at all. It literally is just a rewrite or of your life, the way it should have been, the way it should have been if you were like an optimized being in physical form. So at that level, and I go, damn, this is really, really fantastic, and most people, you just want to stay there. But, and there's a voice that always goes, well, you can stay here, but, and as soon as they say, but you can return, you literally just come back into your body. And that's where I felt the pain. And it was so excruciating because my jaw, my whole face, literally my right, the side was cracked. And, and the pain was so great, I just passed out, and then I dropped to the floor, and I found myself, I don't know when, in the hospital with my jaws wired shut. I had no clue what happened to me. And you know, it was really fantastic. It was really beautiful, by the way. It sounds harrowing, but to see your presence and your potential, or get, say, as close to God as you can, and then come back and tell about it. I mean, it, it's unexplainable. You know, the words are too minimal for that.
Did your experience answer the questions that you had?
Yes, yes, and it not just like cognitive, you know, solutions. Like, here's the answer. You know, like you take a test and you get the answer back. Nothing really happens. It just sits here. But the answers that I got changed me entirely. It changed your frequency. So this is where, say, knowledge turns into wisdom, where you just are the knowledge. And it allowed me, you know, my abilities that I currently have, or the open door to the abilities or the possibilities. And so that first near death literally allowed me to understand the potential of who we are, and go, and it basically, it's like, hey, you know, this is your potential. This is your purpose on why you're here. Right. And which led me to being, say, dissatisfied with my life. It was a great life, you know. I made good money and all that, you know. But when you see your potential compared to who you could be, like most people these days, right? It's like, you know, like just imagine like being a kid again, and you have so much potential, but then what happened? Right? You get limited. Even if you're making a lot of money, it's just like, it's not it's not comparable to what it could be here. You know, because most of the time you've sold your, say, your essence, you sacrificed a lot of things to make the wealth or the success or the love or whatever, right? So you depleted yourself. And that was that yearning to go, okay, what are the mechanics? How do I, say, go to college, or how do I, you know, download that information so I can access what I know exists there? Which led me to my second near death, about 20 some years later, which was a drowning accident. And in that, we were in, and you know, we were in Belize, and we were going on an inner tube, family inner tube. And the thing is that nature sets that up for you, or an intelligence sets that up for me, um, because everything was curated. One, you know, everybody was supposed to have a life jacket. I was the only one that didn't have a life jacket. You know, two, when we got into the jungle where we're supposed to, you know, get into the river, um, the wilderness just stopped. There was no, it was kind of windy. The wind stopped. There was no noise, because we're in the jungle. You hear noise all the time. There was no noise. There was nothing. Everything just like quiet, just like on a movie set where everything was just like super quiet. And you kind of wonders, like, I was wondering, it's like, well, what's going on? But again, everything, the universe knows. And it set me up to get pulled into a cenote, basically a hole in the river. And that's where, again, it felt familiar. It's like, oh, I'm disconnecting from my body. So I was a bit excited, because I was going back to, you know, my higher self, which was really exciting, but then sad at the same time, because it's like, gosh, I'm never going to go see, you know, my kids, my loved ones again. So, but then, you know, you release from your body, and then, you know, I went to a higher level, a higher plane, and this is where you go beyond, say, those layers. You know, like, the introductory layer of where your pets are, you know, your loved ones are greeting you. The fourth layer, where I went before, you know, I passed that layer and went past, say, maybe the graduate level, probably the 13th layer, and at that level, this is where, you know, I went beyond the veil, and this is where, say, the knowledge of the universe, whatever's out there, you know, whatever was, is, and shall be, I had access to. So the second near death gave me all, say, the answers, not just here, but again, I live the answers. And I integrated so well that when I came back in physical form, uh, and I was underwater for maybe about 8, 10 minutes, according to my wife at the time. And it's like somebody pulled me when it was time. Somebody pulled me from the bowels of the earth because I got sucked into the earth and just pulled me up, about 100 yards above river. So I was seeing where my inner tube had gone in because the inner tube was still, stuck there. And I'm going, wow, how the heaven did that happen? Right? How did I get here? So, uh, but ever since then, you know, I became very, very different. Success or even love or just being here was very, very different. So I went through a few years of the nights of the soul, dark nights of the soul. And this is where I started to integrate my new version of who I am with abilities that I have now that I've, over the past 14 years, worked on, hundreds of thousands of people, client sessions with amazing results. And we can change our lives radically fast if we go to the realm where we say have created ourselves.
Do you actually see the layers, like as you're traveling through them, or do you just find yourself there?
You find yourself there, but now I see the layers.
Okay. So how would somebody know if they're tapping into that highest realm or if they're tapping into a lower vibration?
Yes, so that's a really good question because a lot of times people go, "Oh, I saw Jesus," or "Oh, I saw this bright light that's supposed to guide me." And so you want to watch out for that because those frequencies, depending on how you think, how you see those, um, they say they disguise themselves, and they're not mean, but they're just like say you have to have a strong immune system. So you have to ask. You can simply ask is like, are you of say the pure source for me? Do you have the purest intent for me? Because they can't really lie to you. And again, it's not mean or they're not like devils or trying to get you, although those frequencies do exist, and I can explain all that. But basically, it's like bacteria. Over here, there's millions of bacteria and viruses that your immune system wards off all the time. That makes sense too. So you have a
Yeah.
strong immune system, and it doesn't affect you. Up there, you have to have a strong, say, spiritual immune system. So simple. It's more like that rather than evil and good and all that stuff because you want to get away from those kind of ideations.
Yeah, I know, I've heard that if people are dreaming and they meet somebody in their dreams and they ask, "Who are you?" then it changes. And then they immediately know that that person or being is either benevolent or malevolent.
Exactly. So you really want to be specific on that. So
So you said you went through the dark night of the soul. Was that as a result of going like having experienced the other side and then not being there again?
yes. So what you do is when you go into that other side, you start to say remove the lies that you are, the identities, shaped by, your genetic patterns, the society's patterns, your experiences, generational patterns. You start to see that, that's not true. In fact, most of how human societies run today, we're doing the opposite, the flip of how we actually should be doing it. And that's why no matter what we do, it almost seems like we're going down, a spiral where we can't get out of. Right. So in that case, everything was backwards for me. Success is like, why am I sacrificing myself? Why, the way normal people have, I was highly successful, but it's like, gosh, it didn't feel well. It didn't feel good. In fact, the more success I had in that pattern, the more, say, of my presence or essence was like taken away. I'm going, God, that can't be right. I want that back because that's why we want success for. So, so all the patterns or all the concepts or the logic system had to get removed and then replaced by the original, say, intent of what we're here for. So yes, so that's the dark nights of the soul. It's a transition of, say, the lies that you are. I mean, for you or your listeners, just if I ask you who you are, you'd probably give me an answer based on, your experiences or your parents' experiences or whatever. That's not the truth of who you are, right? So this takes you back to go, oh, I am, an infinite being having an experience here in physical form.
Yeah.
And you know that very detailed. It's not just something you read somewhere, like most people do, by the way. You experience it, you know that real essence of who you are.
Yeah, we tend to believe our ego, and our ego doesn't know very much.
No, no, ego doesn't work very well. I mean, ego
um,
is good if used properly to help you ascend higher, but most people use it to hold on to their distorted identities.
yeah, and it's quite sad because that's the very thing that we think is going to help us is what's getting in our way.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's like I'm religious, I'm spiritual, I am a good person, I'm this and that. But most people don't really know the real definitions of all those words that they think they are, right? For example, like love, for example, it's like, yeah, we want love for the world, but, look at your definition of love. Did you sacrifice for, the love that you have? Did you, have a lot of pain for the love that you have? Do you feel like yourself when you're in love? And most people can answer no, no, and no. Is that the kind of definition? So definitions are highly important, on how
Yeah.
you define who you think you are. So all those get peeled away for you, and you're just there naked, just frequency. So, which is a beautiful thing.
So all the patterns, all the negative patterns that you have been experiencing, you are then faced with them and having to deal with all of them and just release them one by one as they came up.
Yeah. At first it's one by one, but then it's an avalanche,
Okay.
because everything comes
Oh,
down.
fun.
When you've gone through such extreme, say, experiences, there's no going back. So yeah, everything fell apart. I had to file bankruptcy. I lost my business. Everything just disappeared. And at that time, it's like, you're in this, like, you're in this space. It's like, damn, I lost everything, you know and then you've lost your fake identity, basically. And this is where that voice came back. It's like, okay, now that you've lost everything, what did you really lose? And then it literally showed me who I really am. So, and ever since then, which was about gosh, 14, maybe 16 years ago, that moment of clarity is like, oh, this is who I really am. So what I lost was the lies that I was running,
Yeah.
or that identity of being human. And I've never looked back, and regained the success, and in a much, much, say, better way.
How did it affect your relationships going through what you went through?
Well, my ex-wife at the time, obviously that relationship, it probably ended it much faster, instead of extending it out. And this is even now, when I like have sessions, or when people do hyper meditations with me, if anything that is not true has to, say, dissolve in a very short time, not 10 years down the line, just like now for me. So that relationship dissolved. It was tragic, but the kids and I are really fantastic for it. We've grown and expanded from it, because again, if you're living a lie, it just doesn't work out for you nor the kids. So the relationships really transform the relationship with myself, the relationship, say, with a higher power or higher intelligence, beyond, say, religious constructs. The original, say, meaning of, say, what a Jesus would envision, or what a Buddha or Muhammad, or Abraham, or whoever it is out there that actually connected to those pure sources. You get to that level bypassing, say, the religious constructs, which have been diluted over hundreds or thousands of years that they've been around. So relationship with money, very, very different. Money has become a reflection of who I am. So the higher you go in presence, the more, say, wealth that you have. um, in most cases, wealth becomes a facade for people. this becomes a reflection of who. Love, for example, I help, I don't know, tens of thousands of people a year. And it doesn't drain me, it doesn't burn me out. In fact, it enhances me. My health, I don't, I'm very, very different than my family. I don't have the diseases of the family. I'm aging much younger. I'm 65 years old. Feel tests come back as late 30s, early 40s. On that. So everything, like literally everything that we're living is saying, if it's not a lie, it's not the most optimal method of living. So this brings in a whole new, say, science on it's the science of life, really, what I'm bringing
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
So you've obviously worked through quite a bit. Tell us about your third NDE.
I was in Peru in Cusco, which has a high elevation, I think 12,000 feet. So one that could have attributed to it. Uh, you know, uh, Basically what happened, for some reason, I was so depleted in minerals that my body stopped functioning. So I was at a pizza restaurant in Cusco, and I just started feeling weaker and weaker. I was starting to sweat, and basically my body was shutting down. And Peru is not, say, the best place to have, say, a life emergency. So their hospital system not the best, but they did good. I'm still here. I went in, and the nurse came in, and my body temperature had dropped to the low 90s, but I was still sweating. So it was just like, and I was just like everything was just like shutting down. So they rushed me to the hospital, and this is where my son was. He was in the ambulance with me, and he could tell that I was just like fading away because I was just not here, and he was just literally like trying to hold me down, and I just floated above him, and I could see him holding me down, and it just like blacked out, and went into, say, a higher space, and it was beautiful. It was just amazing, and it's just like you own it. So I own it, if that makes sense to you. I was just like one. I wasn't like spirit and physical form. So I don't see myself as a spirit or physical being. I'm just a merge of the two, and that's how I live today. So, and then I came back, and they had infused me with all the minerals that I needed. And oh, before, when they took a CAT scan of my brain, it was like mush. But later on, they read it again. They took another MRI, and my brain was like just like pristine, like it had been reset. Like rewired for something. It's like, wow. It was like they said my brain was that of a 25-year-old.
Wow.
Perfect. It's like, so it's like, that's how like miracle healings happen. And
Yeah.
this I've helped a ton of people cure themselves of diseases and things of that nature. And the medical community go, well, that's a miracle, or I don't know what happened, but not really a miracle. It's just basic science that we don't understand just yet. So.
So how does it work scientifically?
It's frequency wise. So most people like try to solve a problem at the surface level. Say, for example, um, you know, uh, gosh, let's just tap into your audience here. So your audience deals with a lot of, say, disease or issues that just keep recycling for themselves, from what I'm sensing. If that makes sense to you. Again, I don't know your audience, but I can tap into anyone or any group, um, and I can explain that as well. But so the reason so say somebody has cancer, for example, okay, and they do the surface level stuff, whatever it might be, through Western medicine, chemotherapy, or Eastern philosophies, or whatever it is. But then they get cancer again, and so on and so on. But because they're trying to resolve the surface level problem. So what I do is like, wait, you got cancer because maybe your father was really, really abusive to you, or your mom, or whatever. I'm just giving you an example, and you just don't feel safe in your body. So if you don't feel safe in your body, you disconnect. And as you disconnect, well, your physical form has to, say, decay. because there's no nourishment between the two. So it's not just cancer that I help people overcome. Again, I don't do the healing. I awaken you to go, oh, this isn't right. Let me put myself together. So again, I don't claim to heal anybody, but I help them awaken to who they are or awaken to that level when I had my near death experience to go, oh, this is not right. This is not my version. So in that case, when you feel comfortable stepping into your body, and that was just one example, your body starts to get nourished. And this is where people just remove themselves of the cancer, for example. So that's the core level issue. So usually it's a frequency level issue or how you're creating yourself or your blueprint. This goes back to where, you have to look at the intelligence that created you before before you were a single cell or before you had a brain. So there was an intelligence there that was there. Some people go spirit, but that's too vague. There is like an intelligence or a consciousness, say parameter, that basically goes, create this person, this infant in this form. That is an intelligence that dictates your, say, lifeline, not your psychology, not your mindset, not what you do, but that imprint. So if you access that imprint, then you can have amazing transformations. I can explain it to you in a different way too, if it's clear. You want me to
No,
explain it?
you can explain it. You can continue.
Oh, okay. So imagine that you're, you're, say, dropping a pebble. You're constantly dropping a pebble moment by moment, creating yourself in a sea of consciousness. The ripples are basically you. That makes sense. Okay, that's how I see people. You're basically ripples, and those waves create, say, disturbances in this reality, and those disturbances is what you see, or the distortions. For example, if a lake was completely calm, it'd just be a clear reflection, nothing. But if you put a wave in there, it catches your eye, and you can see shape and form. That's how we render ourselves here. What most people do is like, oh, I see the shape and form. I'm going to try to change the wave or the ripple. And this is like the surface level problem. It's already rendered itself in this reality. You're creating, so you're trying to fix something that's already created in this reality. And it just doesn't work. That's why we recreate the same wars, the same diseases, the same, financial issues, whether it's at a political level, a world, humanity level, country level, cultural level, religious level, or familial level, or a personal level.
How would somebody know if cancer, for example, if it's inherited or if it's from a trauma from yourself? How does a person know where to find the cause?
Well, even the cancers that are, say, inherited, like you say, a lot of that doesn't have to be. It's just people who are carrying trauma from the past. And then we go, well, it's the foods that we eat. And yes, it is, but why is a society creating the foods that you eat that causes cancer? Because the underlying frequency dictates that something has to form in physical form for you to have cancer, for example. Does that make sense? So if you clean it at the base level, this is where manufacturers won't manufacture foods that cause cancer or create technologies that don't cause cancer. So, but anyway, back to my example. So people try to fix the wave, but in XI, exponential intelligence, that's what I teach, is like, what's dropping into the sea of consciousness? What pebble are you dropping in? If it's a, say, round pebble, it'll create, a round wave. If it's a square pebble, it'll create a square wave. If it's a triangular, it'll create a triangular wave. Let's change the shape of what you're dropping into the sea of consciousness. So even if it's inherited, you don't have to carry the diseases of your parents. And there's thousands of people who don't age like their parents do.
So if let's say somebody's like inherited a genetic marker for cancer, I'm just using that as an example. They don't necessarily have to get cancer, but now they do. Is it just because there's a trauma that is playing out over and over again? And if they heal that, that ripple, that shape, then they won't get the cancer.
Right. It's a memory. So what humans do, and it goes deeper into your question, what nature does, say whatever species, plant or animals, what nature does, every generation, basically, nature goes, okay, what went right, what went wrong in this generation? It removes the things that got distorted and then implements, say, a better concept. So this is where, say, a virus comes through, kills the pack, but then the next generation is immune to that virus. That's how nature resolves those situations. So whether it's cancer or anything else, nature resolves it. In humans, because we have free will, we get to choose what we carry over. So so humans don't do evolution right or do free will. And most people go, well, shit, I'll have what my parents are having. And then, just imagine, say 18 generations, if you go back, there's over 1 million people that had to get together to create who you are. So you've got a gene pool of over 1 million people's distorted versions or memories. So humans carry not just the gene instruction, but then also the memories. And in psychology, or there's a lot of people who have PTSD of like wars, and they can like dream, or they can explain, visualize what happened exactly 100 years ago, for example, although they were never born back then. That's because the memories of their forefathers have say infused into them. They inherited all that. So again, in humans, we adapt wholly over everything. In nature, they just adapt whatever's best and go to the next gene pool. So in that case, once you and you have to ask yourself, well, why is your DNA programmed to create cancer cells? What programmed that? Because in that DNA, there's switches, so to speak, and they call it switches. Really, that goes, oh, why is this switch off in a person, and why is that switch on in a person? Right. So that's the instruction, that intelligence before you were born. It's already, say, created you in that form. So when you access, you can literally turn, say, that genetic marker off for you, frequency wise. You don't have to do it chemically, and we've done that before. We've actually proven that.
So how would you turn it off?
Frequency wise, it's just like,
Do
back in
you
the day,
use it?
I was a
Yeah.
programmer. I was a computer programmer. So, I used a specific language. In this case, it's a frequency language that we all are, say, innately connected to. And through sessions, we even have a cancer clinic that I've helped a ton of people, literally. So it's literally about recreating you, again, rewiring you at the, say, that intelligence level before you were born. It also
Well,
gets rid of a lot of things as well, not just, say, that marker. And that's a problem with, CRISPR technologies and, chemical things. It's like, well, let's just turn that gene off for cancer or whatever. But it's like, wait a second, what was the constraints that opted your DNA to go, okay, this gene needs to turn on? Because, if you solve just for one issue, it'll like render itself in another form, whether it's cancer or whether it's something else. That makes sense to you. So you need to solve it. It's like and again, I'm going into another space, but it's like dating. It's like, oh, I don't like this person that I dated, therefore I will date somebody else. That's like turning off that switch. But then if you didn't change your internal, say, frequency, you'll probably attract the same version in a different body. Get it? And then you're so that's what, say, CRISPR or chemical, you know, technology does. It may turn off the gene expression, but it doesn't turn off, say, the circumstance behind it. So again, in that case, they're changing the wave structure. What I'm saying is like, well, let's change what you're dropping into, this realm.
so once the frequencies have been applied, are they then completely healed, or does it come back again?
Uh,
I would think for some people that it would be a belief system that they'd have to change and they'd have to be aware of it first.
yeah. So there's different levels of belief systems. You have to ask yourself, where does your belief system come? you know so there's, say, programming or logic systems that like render you before it even comes to your mind, if that makes sense to you. There's, say, it's kind of like your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system runs your breathing, your digestion, and your balance and all that. You're not actively doing it. So there's another, say, autonomic nervous system that, say, connects you, that basically says you are here and creates your body the way you are. That makes sense to you. So that autonomic nervous system, once you connect with that, yeah, you can edit all that. Right?
Okay. So you can just bypass the conscious mind.
Yeah. So your belief systems are, say, physically bound, or more emotional or here, but then again, your problems started like 10 steps back, way beyond. Like, look at all the patterns. Like, even in your brain, you have like, say, a super subconscious, and then you get into that frequency autonomic system that I talk about. But you have your super subconscious, you have your subconscious, where your autonomic nervous system is, your, say, go-to methods, your knee-jerk reactions, things of that nature. Then you have your logics, your conscious logic, and then you have your logic systems there, derived from, again, experiences, your experiences, parents, society's experiences. And then you go into, say, emotional states. So your emotions, most people go, well, I need to trust my emotions, follow your heart. You really don't. You shouldn't, because those emotions basically are dictated by, or they basically get they basically get you experiences that are dictated by the programs, that I just mentioned earlier, the underlying programs. This is where people follow their heart and they get into abusive relationships over and over and over again. They might have changed their emotions, but they didn't change the underlying program that dictates how those emotions. So in that case, when you change yourself way back here, your belief system automatically changed for the better. So yeah, in a lot of cases, people who've had, like, say, stage 4 cancers, or I work with a lot of kids who are like autistic, or have PTSD or ADD and all that stuff, and like one or two sessions, and these sessions are like maybe 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long. They've radically changed, because it's not a brain issue, it's a frequency issue.
Well, so if somebody had autism,
Mhm.
what causes that? Is it a wiring in the brain? Is it just frequency? I'm just trying to make sense of it a bit.
Yeah, like autism, you see those kids who, and there's different degrees of autism, severe autism. They're so, okay. So autistic kids, and parents who have autistic kids, and again, I've worked with a lot, of kids, who have autism. So what happens is, usually, the parents or whoever looks at that kid, and you see that they're not completely there. That makes sense to you? So basically, what that is that, your presence, or if you want to call it your spirit, I call it your timeless self, basically the computer that, I guess a cleaner way, a better way, a better example is, if you're playing a computer and there's a player on the screen, right? It's not really there. It's created by, say, the computer that dictates. Does that make sense? And then you have a joystick. The joystick is basically your brain. The joystick tells you, go left, go right. Okay. So for autistic kids, the computer basically lost track of where they put the body on, say, the image on the screen. So in this case, sometimes, the brain goes, well, I want to go left, but then left is programmed for the player to go right in this case. So it's just miscalibrated. This is, and people who have PTSD or severe PTSD, you can see that they are, say, reenacting, a realm that's not really here, because they're living in, say, some other dimension of space and time. So even with those people, like through wars and all that stuff, it's like, whoa, you start to, say, refine and readjust their frequency, and they come into this reality. and they go, oh, I get it. This reality is not when I was in war, because they live from that moment. They get stuck in moments of time. So with kids who are autistic, basically, they're, say, disconnected. And then you align them and they get better, much, much better.
Do they become normal, or are they still
Depends
kind of
on the
offline?
level. It depends on their level of say, distortion that they are. Extreme is pretty hard, but light to medium, yeah, they can actually sustain themselves.
Oh,
So, yeah,
that's pretty cool. So
yeah,
how do
very.
you adjust the frequency? Is it like, do you use what tools do you use?
It's just literally it's almost like a programming language. So I use through, it's not, some might call it the power of thought, but it goes beyond that. And so you can't really, so if a person has, say, a session with me, I can sense what's going on with you and then, say, adjust it. It literally is like going into, say, the back end system and just recoding you. So that's the way I do it. I don't exactly know how that works, but the footsteps are there. There've been some good research where, I've worked on a vial of like human DNA, and worked on it, and they put it under a microscope, and it's like separated itself much faster actually than, say, they compared it to a cell phone. you know how cell phones degrade human DNA. So I actually separated or degraded it much faster, but then hours later, the one I worked on, the DNA had come back cleaner, more beautifully, say, created, versus the distortion. And then once you change yourself at that level, and again, this is just research, once you change it yourself at that level, their their issues change as well.
Okay. If a person wanted to like tap into that frequency or that level of consciousness, are they able to do it? And if so, how would they do it?
Yeah, I teach people all the time. So, through hyper meditations, I call them, and these aren't just your normal meditations. What I do is I literally pull you into, say, the state of, say, present moment time, and the best moment of, say, the best possibility that you could be in the moment. And when you do that, some people call it flow states. Some people, like monks, call it wholeness, completeness, singularity, all those things. With my abilities, I can pull you into, say, the most optimal person you can be at that level. When you're seeing, say, what you could be, you can let go of those things that you really aren't, or that stop you. So once you do that, that person starts to, say, awaken. And it's not like I do it for you, but I teach you at a very deep level on how to do it. And then they start editing themselves for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
Uh,
that's amazing.
it's way out there, but I think humans are more in tune with, I have to have a machine, I have to do this modality, this. It's really not. You are a frequency. You're coded in frequency, and this is what creates you. So if you can access, say, that coding, which doesn't need technology, because you were here long before technology was ever created. So if you access that technology, you can start editing yourself. They talk about it in religions. They talk about it in a lot of those, say, philosophical books, right? So this is the applied technique to that.
It reminds me of those ones and zeros that were dropping in the Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah, there are different realities. There's a lot of movies that kind of relate to what I'm talking about, like Everywhere, Everything, All at Once. A lot of the Spider-Man movies, Doctor Strange, where they get into the multiverse, Inception, the butterfly effect. All those basically is the field that I'm an expert at.
Yeah, I think whoever created those movies had obviously had those kinds of experiences because it's too similar for all of those the way that they play out for it not to be. And
Yeah,
anyway, where did they get the idea from?
yeah, exactly. I'm not the only one that tapped into those possibilities out there. You know, there's millions of people, but I would say I'm probably one of the very few that have say created say a handbook on how to go into those realms without like
Okay, so,
and all that stuff.
so tell us about the handbook.
Well, that's so exponential intelligence is the handbook, and you know, there's plenty of information on YouTube about how I see realities, and once people listen to it, it's like, oh yeah, I know that because it's we all are connected to the same source. You know, I just have say better access to it just because of what I've gone through. If you go through the same process and a lot faster this time because I've already gone through it, you can have that same access.
Yeah, I just think like there's a reason why some people have a near-death experience, but you don't necessarily have to go through one in order to wake up.
No, no, they don't. No, they don't. I mean, I've gone through the process. Some of the courses that people can take is a near-death experience for them. Okay, because it's literally about shedding off your old self and integrating into your new self. So for most people, that is a near-death experience. People do experience, say, a death of self. And again, in a lot of philosophies, a lot of religions, they talk about the death of the self and a resurrection of the new version. That's what happens. You every moment you can let go of you let your old self die, your new self blossom. But again, people drag the past.
So if somebody wanted to go through that experience, how would they get hold of you?
They can go to the website, thexicode.com. They can go on YouTube and just look up, if you look up XI Masati or MASATI dot live, that's my YouTube channel. And there's just a ton of stuff, free information that you can access. There's you can see I scan people at the end of pretty much most shows, and you can see how my abilities work, where I can just like pinpoint exactly what's going on with you. I don't need to know your name or anything like that. I mean, I can see you, your frequencies, and how you render yourself. But we won't get into that because it's a public show. But you know, all those things. It's just I see all that, so it gives you insight on, say, my abilities, and you know, um, so you can go to again the xicode.com or masati.live, my YouTube channel. There's plenty of free information out there, and then also courses that'll help you as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll post those links below. Um, okay, so if you were to read somebody's energy, or how do you read it?
You can just ask me. I mean, for you, for example, I mean, I can read you if you want. You can go, oh, my dad. I can read your dad. I don't need birth dates, names, anything like that. It's like, oh, I'm thinking of a friend. I can read them. I can read anybody, dead, alive, important, not important, whatever. So, and the way that works is integrity. So the higher you are, obviously, I can't use my abilities for bad, and you don't even think of that. But anyway, the more say aligned you are, the higher you have access to. So
Okay.
basically, access to pretty much all the coding of this anybody in this reality. It sounds kind of
So
strange, but
no, no, I mean I've interviewed a lot of people. So just out of curiosity, what do you read from me, like just briefly?
you if you take a breath in, hon, you as a young girl are always you're always defined by what your mom sees or a feminine frequency. I don't know if it's your mom, or it's almost like you might have had two mothers or two people that took care of you, feminine, if that makes sense for you. Um,
No, not really.
okay. Was your mom really close to her mom, or a sister, for
Your
example?
sister, yeah.
Yeah. So the two sisters. So when I see your mom, it's almost like I see two people that raised you. So when you're a little kid, you're looking at your mom and you basically see what I see, but not comprehend it. It's like, why is mom creating two versions of herself? And it disorients you, by the way, because the two versions have different expectations of who you should be. So you always say, in your pattern, you're always like going, well, what would mom think of me? But then her say idea of who you are changes. So one day, for example, she might like you in this color, and then the next day you wear that color, and it's like, oh, I don't like that color on you. So for you, it gets kind of confusing on like who you could be. So as you aged, into your teens, then you always reflect back on what people think of you, by the way. And then your identity is based on what people think of you, and then you'll always adapt. But people always change, and then your identity has to change with, say, the people that you're with. So in your 20s, and how old are you? Just to be more accurate.
I'm in my 50s.
Oh, beautiful. You look great for 50s. So in your 20s, you basically go, hell with it. I don't care what those people think of me. And this is where you started to say have a trajectory of finding who you are, finding yourself. But what you've done, especially in your late 20s or so, is basically what, you go, well, people think of me this way. I'm not really that. So I need to reference myself this way. That makes sense for you. So that's a referential point of view, is like, and this is where, in another case, not yours, where it's like, oh, mom is this way, and I don't like mom, so to speak. I'll be the opposite of mom. I'll do the opposite of society. I'll do the opposite of whatever. You kind of gleaned into that space. I don't know if you got into, say, religious circles or, that kind of scenario in your late 20s. It kind of disoriented you, for or teachings of that realm for you in
Yeah,
your
I
late.
started investigating
Okay.
spirituality.
Yeah. So with people like you, hon, what happens is, like, say you get into a spiritual circle, and since your identity is based on what other people say think of you, or say if you go into a group, unconsciously you would slowly morph into that group. Now you're more conscious of it back in your day. So, if those spiritual people weren't, say, the best, right? They didn't have the purest intent, it would distort your teachings, basically. As you aged, you got better. And, in your 40s, so to speak, you basically, created a shell around you, to protect yourself, because you figured out, it's like, shit, I'm absorbing everything. And then you didn't have an identity. So you created this shell around you. But then as you created the shell, this is where relationships kind of go numb, because again, there's a shell around you. So you protect your space in that way. So intimacy and all that doesn't really work out as deeply as they could, because although it could be there, but it's like, why don't I feel, say, the presence of my being? Because there literally is a frequency shell around you. That makes sense. Right? So in your 50s, now you're more, say, relaxed about it, but and even this scan will help you, say, understand who you are outside of your parents' beliefs. And you do well with culture, which is good. Society's beliefs, you're kind of like, well, society believes this, I'm gonna investigate more or do the contradictory. So from that, so a session, say, for example, or program called Know Thyself, that would literally help you understand who you are at a very deep level, outside of your genetic pattern, your societal patterns, the spiritual patterns. I don't see religion in you that much. I think your mom was, um, maybe her parents were highly religious from what I'm seeing, and then she wasn't, or it didn't work out for her, so to speak. So she was kind of like floating, so to speak, not really content. Anyway,
Wow.
I could tell more and more, but did that make sense for you?
Well, just to verify for the audience, I grew up in a home where my mom and her sister, we shared the same house.
Oh,
So they were on the one side of the house and we were on the other side, and I grew up with my cousins.
okay.
And my mother's mother died when I was a baby from cancer, and she was very spiritual. And because of that, my mom didn't want to be spiritual.
Oh, that's what it is. Got it. Yeah.
So, and yes, I'm a rebel. So that was very well read.
Yeah. So, like your mom, for example, it's like, well, it's like my mom believed in spirituality and then God took her. And why did she have cancer? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then it's like, well, it didn't work for her. It's like, well, she did it off, not completely. Her mom basically took on too many burdens of other people, which your mom basically goes, I'm not taking any burdens off. I'm not taking any burdens from anybody. That makes sense to you? And then it kind of left you kind of like going, well, I want to be nice, but then the definition of nice is distorted. Get it? Because if you're nice, then that means you might get cancer. That kind of deal, which is really a messed up definition. But that's how people, or when you're growing up, then you associate all these things at a frequency level, and then what you see just enhances, um, or proves what your frequency is thinking of, and then you think that's the way it is. If I'm too nice, then that's the way you are. If I'm very nice, then I'm going to have to give of myself, and then I'll get diseased or whatever. That's an underlying pattern in your 30s and 40s for you. And that's why I was saying, like, when you got into spiritual circles, everything's love and light. We're all one. And then you're going, God, I don't want anybody else's garbage. Get it? And then you just seclude yourself. It could be different where you're just the light proving, that you can be nice in say natural intelligence definition of nice, and you can still be knowing who you are.
Yeah. Well, you have to have boundaries. That's also nice.
Yeah, most people create barricades around them. They're still, say, unknown to themselves on the inside, so that's why they create boundaries or security plates. In XI, what I teach is basically it's like, well, let's just create you so solid that you're not porous and there's nothing can affect you. So,
Oh,
so that's how you create a boundary. Does that make sense? And then this is where people honor you. This is where you're not always fighting, the realities. You're not always attracting the same kind of people. People just look at you as like, oh, okay, I can't abuse that guy. It's like, oh, they just walk away from it.
yeah, you've kind of broken that frequency attraction.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm just wondering, like, is it a case of, to me, all suffering comes from either not having had support or giving support?
Both.
Like,
Yeah, because um for you, and that's why I was saying that's why the two mothers are important for you, if that makes sense to you. Although your sister, not your sister, your mom's sister might not have been a support person, but she was of similar age as a mother, so to speak, and it kind of confuses you. So for you, it's like, and that's what I was referring to, which goes deeper, is like, well, do I follow mom's patterns or do I follow her sister's patterns? And then you feel not supported, although to me, your mom was, say, caring for you and so on. At a physical level, frequency level, it's just like she wasn't there. And this is what a lot of kids get misconstrued. It's like, oh, they don't like their mom and all this. You're not like that, but a lot of people, and then they, although their parents did everything, they still don't like them because the frequency wasn't there. So in that case, yeah, it messes you up. But if you are supporting people, like most people go, well, the more people I help, the more I will be evolved. But if you're helping people, it's if you're helping people and you're giving of yourself, of your presence, you're not evolving yourself. You're just basically um, paying for. So when you help people, it's like, here, let me take your burdens on. That's what people do. There's two different ways, So they take on their burden. So burdens is like, it's like, oh, let me take that 10 pounds off your back. I'll carry it for you. That's how people help, right? But then they don't know how to do it properly. And then that person goes, oh, she just took my burdens. I'll make more. And this is where you get a society where how many people are out there helping people and they go, shit, I've had enough. Why
Yeah.
can't these people stand up for themselves? Right. And good people turn, say, vicious, and good people get angry. And you're seeing that a lot. It's like, because they think if I help people, then they're going to expand or, get a better life. And they don't. They get destroyed. And it's like, well, why can't they help themselves? That's what society is coming. It's not that you shouldn't help people. It's just that you should help people in a better way. Figure out your problems, okay? And then you extend your light, because that's what it means in spirituality and religion. You extend your light to the person. That's how you're helping. And then they awaken and go, oh, she figured her stuff out. This will help me figure my stuff out. And then you delete or you eliminate the burdens cast on society. It literally is a weight that people are feeling right now.
No, you're right. In fact, that's what I see that Jesus meant when he said, "Follow me, I am the way." He didn't say, "Do what I say." He was saying, "Do what I do." If you do what
Yeah,
I do, then you'll also be enlightened.
absolutely. Exactly. But most people, especially the Roman people, don't want to get too much into it. But it's like, yeah, Jesus paid for your sins, so just we'll tell you what to do, basically. And Jesus never said that. It's like you just said it perfectly. Do what I do, you'll be good. I'm not going to carry your sins. Just do what I do. Your sins will be resolved or absolved. But most people mistake it. It's like, oh, I believe in Jesus, therefore he's going to take on my sins. It's like, no,
There's no
no,
getting away from yourself.
no.
Like you,
Yeah, yeah,
if you created some burden or some karma, then it's for ourselves to sort it out
exactly.
and to know what's ours. In fact, I think that would be the biggest thing is discernment, is knowing what's mine and what's yours.
That is so true. Once you elevate, you start to see, like what's yours, what you got from your parents, and you go, gosh, that's parents' burdens. I don't need to continue on with it, right? So you're exactly right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. That's the way it works. It all comes to balance and harmony, literally. So if you want to get rid of something, balance it out, not by like if you've been a bad person, for example, people go, well, I'll do 10 good deeds and then I'll be okay. No, frequency wise, what is attracting you to do something bad in the first place? Get rid of that pattern inside you and then you'll harmonize and then it just eliminates from your life physically. You don't get attracted to, say, bad things happening to you.
Would that be like a state of alignment?
Absolutely. Yes, it's the physics of what people say alignment, being one, being whole, being harmonious. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
mechanic of what I just said. Exactly.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. Feeling a bit exposed.
Yes.
um,
You'll actually change through this. You'll start to see the process. And then you'll literally integrate who you really are, who you've always wanted to be since you were 4 or 5, hun. You've always wanted to be this person, but all this time you could never reach it. And now it'll open that door for you, and you'll really own who you are, and you'll feel like the 4 or 5-year-old child once again, and it'll really like enlighten you.
Lovely. Well, I look forward to
Yeah.
that. Before we go, do you have a message for our viewers?
Yes. Just note that you're not broken. Most people go, again, I'm broken. I need something outside of me to fix it. No, you're not broken. You never were. It's just a lie that you've been living. So start to realize the truth, go inside you, and you go, gosh, you know what? I was never broken. And embrace that part of you, or that, say, persona of you. And as you do that, the brokenness that you create here dissolves or disappears.